we doing here at the Walk 17? I'm excited to be here with y'all. Okay, before I get started, I need to know who's in the room. Gwinnett Church, where you at? Yes. Decatur City, where are you? There they are. Represent Buckhead. All right. And that little one called Woodstock. Yeah. Awesome. But let's unify it a little bit more. Where are my fellas at? I love that you all try to lower the octave. Yeah, from down here. Ladies, where are you? That is awesome. That's awesome. Hey, so when I get started, you need to know 3 things about me. The first thing you need to know about me is that my parents are African. So my parents were born in Africa, not like, over just in some rural part, but they were like born in Africa, so they're African. And then they came to the United States. My dad's name is Futananmi, and my mom's name is Edamame. And so you would think when I'm born, my dad would like hold me up for the first time and go, Simba, But no, they named me Justin, which is like the whitest name ever. Seriously, it's crazy. Here's the second thing you need to know about me. About 3 weeks ago, I married the love of my life. We are absolutely in love. She is the greatest woman ever. She gets so embarrassed when I do this. She's going to kill me when we get back to the room. Yeah, she's right there. She's right back there. I love you, boo-boo. Yeah. So she loves when I do that stuff. The third thing you need to know about me, I take forever to get, I can't do this, okay? Here's the deal. Gerald did such an amazing job last night. I thought, yeah. I just thought to myself, I'll do the exact same thing he did, and they'll love me as much as they loved him. But it's not easy being Gerald. Even though we're doppelgangers, it is hard to be like Gerald. Some of you got that. But my name is Justin, and I have my own family. I don't need to borrow Gerald's right now. I actually brought a picture of them because that's what speakers do. Here's my beautiful family. Let me explain. I know it's not the best. I drew it myself, but here's what happened. All right, y'all have been there. Space fills up on your phone, okay? You want to take a picture, get that action shot of worship to throw it up on Instagram. Your phone tells you, hey, we can't take anything else right now. So you have to make some compromises. It's a dog-eat-dog world in the iPhone. So I got to go through and delete some of this stuff, all right? I can't delete some of my food pictures and stuff like that, so I chose to delete a lot of family pictures, which is real shame, But I remember what it was like when my daughter was born. I don't need to keep that. But anyway, this is me. My hair is gray here. I don't know what's going on there. I've got bread for feet. And then this is my wife. She's not having the best hair day, but it's okay because she has 2 black eyes, so she's not worried about her hair. This is my daughter, Finley. Yeah. And then this is our daughter, Allie, who is not dead. She was too hard to draw with my wife holding her. It looked like she had a machine gun. So I just thought, I'll scrap that and go again. But yeah, they're a beautiful family. I love them very much. This one, though, let me talk about that one for a second. Because she is tough. She's 2.5 years old, and she has the brain of like a 35-year-old. So we're always in this battle together. She's in this stage right now where she just says why to everything. You know that kids do this. They say why, why, why. Me and my wife approach this 2 different ways, okay? She gives up. My wife just gives up. She doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So she'll be like, no, you can't have candy for breakfast. Why? It's like, because, forget it. You just can't. Eat your cereal. I'm like, she ain't going to win. I'm older than her. I'm bigger than her. Bring it on. So she'll be like, hey, Dad, can we go outside? I'll say, no, it's lightning outside right now. We could get struck by lightning and die. Why? Because the human body was not made to be hit by lightning. You will explode and your body will come apart. Why? Because the way that you are made up is not made to handle an electrical current that strong. When it hits you, it will connect and ground with the ground, and your body will just go kaboom. Why? Because unicorns are real, and if you go outside right now, they'll stab you with their horn. So, I want to play with Play-Doh. I win. Yes, I will not give in to that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We love our kids, though. We love them the most at 8 o'clock because that's their bedtime. I'm kidding. It's 7 o'clock. But anyway, so I love that why stage a little bit just because you look at adults and they don't do that anymore. I kind of wish they did. In fact, I might start doing that. I might just go into work and just think, I'm going to ask why no matter what they say. Hey, we need you to fill out those data reports. Why? Because it's your job, and if you don't do it, you'll get fired. Why? Because I'm getting mad and I'll probably fire you anyway. Why? You know, like, you're fired. I'm going to go play with Play-Doh. I don't even need this. But I've noticed that people, as they get older, they grow out of that. They stop asking why. And initially I thought about that, and I thought, well, it's just because we mature, and we can kind of find our own understanding, and we can kind of figure it out for ourselves. And some people aren't people persons, so it's like as quick as I can get out of this conversation, the better. And so we kind of stop asking why. But the more I thought about it, I thought, man, that's the case in some scenarios, but it may not be the overarching main reason why. And so the more I thought, man, why gets a little bit uncomfortable. If you play out enough scenarios in your head of asking the question why, you're like, yeah, I would get uncomfortable with that. It creates a lot of anxiety in me. For example, one of the scenarios I created was in your small group. When somebody decides to open up about something and you ask them, well, why did you do that? Why? And the thing that came to my mind was this reality that I'm going to talk about tonight, that transparency says, here is what I've done, and vulnerability says, here is why I did it. See, we are so good. We have learned how to be transparent, how to be open. We've learned how to let people know some of the stuff that we've been messing up with, some of the things that we're struggling with. We're really good at that. We've learned how to do that. And the thing is, transparency, when you share those things, it can cover up a lot of stuff. You can convince people that you are very, 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 very healthy because it's like, yeah, last weekend I got hammered drunk. I feel really bad about it, and I shouldn't do that. And they're like, man, he's struggling, but he's open. And he gets it, like he's able to say it. That's what transparency does. It explains what I did. That's when you say, hey, here's what I did. But here's the tricky one, vulnerability. This is why we steer clear of the word why. Because vulnerability says why I did it. And that could be a lot more difficult because the whats that I do are just mistakes. They come and go. They don't require anything really other than an apology. But the whys, those require change. And that can be very difficult. So why do we struggle with this? Why do we struggle with vulnerability? Why is it not something that we're just open to do, share on that deep level? Because vulnerability in the why question causes you to go just a little bit deeper than the surface. Transparency can be a very surface item, and it can be very comfortable, but vulnerability just a little bit deeper under the surface. And I think it's because vulnerability is risky. You have no idea what people are going to think about you, say about you, pass on from the group when they understand what you're made of. You know, it's one thing to talk about a mistake that somebody's had. It's another thing to talk about the reason that they're making these mistakes. It's another thing to be able to share like, yeah, I'm really struggling with this, or this happened to me at home, or this or that, and get down to the deep, dark reason why things are happening. And while things are happening on the surface and talk about it, it's really, really difficult. And over time, if we're not able to be vulnerable, anxiety starts to creep in. I can guess here and say that majority of this room, 99% of this room, carries some anxiety in their life on some level. Whether it's something that's keeping you up at night or something that you may be able to forget about for a day, but it comes back to get you the next day, I think we all carry anxiety inside of us. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. So if you have any anxiety in you or you've been feeling anxiety at some point in your life, I want you just to lean in. I'm not going to be long because I believe that anxiety is birthed in the absence of vulnerability. I believe that when we're unable to be vulnerable with each other and with God, the anxiety is able to creep into our lives. And we've been talking about David so far the last couple of sessions. And David has modeled some amazing character traits for us to emulate in our own lives. He showed that he had an open heart, and he showed that he had a fearless heart, and those are things that we want you to go model in your own life. But David also had a heart of vulnerability. You see, after he slayed Goliath the giant, people really liked him, okay? People were like really impressed with the fact that an entire army was afraid to face this guy. And here comes this boy bringing lunch. It was probably Chick-fil-A because it's in the Bible. And so he comes down and he's like, you know what? I'll do it. And he faces his fear and he slays the giant. And then when they start to go back to town, the women in the town are singing that Saul, the king, the guy over David, who's in charge of David, Saul's killed thousands, but David has killed tens of thousands. Well, Saul, the king, didn't like this very much. How dare they like David more than they like me? And that began to eat at him, as it would many of us. You know, Saul, he may not have been a super prideful man, but in that moment, his pride started to rear its head, and it began to grow and grow and grow. And he began to think about it. He began to obsess over it. He began to get angry. And so David began to pick up on this scent a little bit. And then he had a friend named Jonathan, who was actually Saul's son. So Saul the king had a son, Jonathan, best friends with David. And they were kind of talking one day like, yeah, something's up. Like, Dad is not happy. Did you wreck his chariot or something? Because he, don't scratch his new chariot. That's brand new. It's got Bluetooth. So he knows that something is up. And so they're kind of talking. They're in this conversation about how they can find out if David has done something or if Saul is mad. So they're talking about David skipping a meal and watching Saul's reaction. And David asked this of Jonathan in 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1. He asked him this question: what have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he is trying to take my life? He's panicking. He's saying, hey, here's what I want to know. I want to know what I've done. I want to know what the what is because I need to take care of this. And he's getting a little nervous and all of that because he's hearing rumors that, hey, this guy wants to kill you. But then David does something else. A little bit later, as we skip down, he's talking to Jonathan and he's like, here's the thing. I don't want you to be that kind of friend that just says, no, you're good. You're good. And that friend knows, like, no, you need to fix a lot of stuff. You're thinking about this all wrong. David challenges him like, no, I don't need that kind of friend right now. Here's the kind of friend I need. And he says to him, if I'm guilty, then kill me yourself. He says, I'm not trying to find a way out of it. I'm not trying to find an excuse. I'm not trying to escape this thing. So if you know something that I don't know, and if you think I'm guilty, and if you think what I've done is wrong and all that, then just kill me yourself. David was digging in his relationship with Jonathan to find the what. He wanted to know what he's done. And here's why I think he wanted to know what he's done. Because what is a signifier of why. If you're not familiar what a signifier is, if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings when the armies are coming and all that, and they need to get word across like the entire world, they all have these towers where they light the top of the tower on fire, and then the next tower can see it, and they light that tower on fire, and the next tower can see it. Or maybe if you've seen movies where people are stranded in the ocean or on an island and the plane flies by and they shoot the flare up in the air, that's a signal fire. A signal fire says, hey, I need some help. Something's going on right here that's not okay. I need some help. So David understood that the what, finding the thing, what did I do, what's going on, was evidence that there was a why question that he needed to ask. Why am I doing it? Why did I do whatever it is that I did? And so I want to skip out of the narrative a little bit because David also wrote all these poems and songs in a book called Psalms. And as I read through those, I came across one that's really popular that we have talked about before at Inside Out. It says that I know that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. A lot of you are familiar with that. But towards the end of that psalm, I learned an important lesson about vulnerability from David. You see, I believe that David, knowing that what being a signifier of why, he had a lot of importance on finding out why things in his life were happening. Why things on the surface were happening. And so in Psalm 139, it says this. David is talking to God. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. I love this idea. David looks up to God and he says, hey, search me. David gives God an invitation of vulnerability. You see, vulnerability isn't just an information exchange. Vulnerability is an invitation to whoever you're being vulnerable with to help you. Because while transparency is saying what you did and vulnerability is saying why you did it, the next part of that is saying, and I need help. I need you to engage in my life. So he says, search me, God. I want you not just to inform me. Don't just tell me that things are wrong, but I want you to search me and know my heart. I want you to look in my heart and I want you to find that thing that I need to change. I don't want you just to point out the mistakes that I've made, but I want you to search my heart and know my anxious thoughts. God, what is causing me anxiety? What's the thing inside of me that's causing the anxiety that I feel? Because anxiety will cause you to do a lot of things. I'm just going to list a couple of them. But anxiety will cause you to hide. And this may not be a literal hide, like you may not go back for small group and shoot under the bed and be like, where did Timmy go? I don't know. He's hiding under the bed. He's a weird dude. I can't find him. Anxiety is not going to make you physically hide. Maybe it will. I don't know if you had bad enough anxiety. But it causes you to hide in the sense of you don't really want anybody to know or see kind of what's behind the curtain. And so you'll throw out the what's every once in a while. Here's what I did. Here's what I did. Here's what I did. Because you know that's a defense mechanism to keep people at arm's reach. Anxiety will also cause restlessness. We don't talk about this a lot, but your physical body needs to rest. And the amount of rest and the quality of rest that you get is determined by your heart and your brain because they're connected. And so the anxiety that we carry will keep us in a constant state of cognitive just corruption and torment to where you can't feel like you can just sit and turn everything off. Where you can just sit and you don't have to check your phone to see if that person's texted you because of the fight you're in. Or look at Instagram and see if you're being left out of something. Or wonder when your parents get home if something catastrophic is going to go down. You need to be able to rest, and anxiety robs that of you. Anxiety will cause you to take control. That may not seem like a big deal. But left to our own, cutting God out of the equation, myself, I will make a mess of my life. And any time in my life where I've tried to take control of the situation and manipulate things so things work out my way, it's been a disaster. But anxiety will convince you that, no, you need to take control because this is going to get out of hand. This isn't going to get any better. There's all these what's in your life where you're promising people you'll fix them. And you're chasing after the what's and taking control and listening to anxiety never lets you get to the heart of the matter, to the why, to what's going on. And lastly, it will prescribe solutions. I've seen a lot of people in my life who think that their anxiety can be taken away, in high school specifically, can be taken away by a pill or a bottle or a blade or something like that. They believe that, you know what, this anxiety thing is just something that everybody deals with and it's just part of life. It's just part of being a human being on planet Earth, that we kind of just have to deal with it. And so I can get rid of anxiety on the weekends, or I can get rid of anxiety when I get home because I'll just prescribe a medication myself. I'll take control and I'll solve it. But here's the deal. Vulnerability offers you so much hope in a world that has anxiety every single place. Vulnerability, what it does primarily, the way that I've kind of learned this in my own life, vulnerability checks your blind spots. Now, I don't know how many of you have your license, but when you get your license, one of the things they teach you on the highway, especially, is to check your blind spots. A blind spot is the part in the car where you can't see if somebody is coming up behind you. Now, I did not start out a good driver. I will tell you that. I will be vulnerable with you for a second and tell you that. So when I was in driver's ed, this poor old man, who I probably put in retirement, sat down with me, and he had his glasses, and he would look at me over his glasses. He'd say, "Are you Justin Warner?" I'd say, "Yes." And he'd be, "All right, check the box." He'd adjust. And he'd just look forward. I'm like, "You want me to go or you want me to sit here?" And he would just sit there. He wouldn't say anything. He was the calmest. Like, I thought he was asleep most of the time. I kid you not. Our first trip, we pull out of the parking lot. We turn right. We go down the street maybe 200 yards. And he says, "Pull in this parking lot." I pull in. He said, "Pull up there." I pull up to the window of a McDonald's, and the dude orders dinner. We're driving for 2 hours. Now I got to smell his McDonald's breath the whole time. It's not starting out well. So the first time went okay. It was the city driving. We're driving around the blocks and stuff like that, making turns, using your signal, everything. And then the next time, about a week later, we go out, and he's like, "You're ready for the highway?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." So, I tighten up my batting gloves, better grip in my minivan. And so anyway, we're in there, and it was his minivan because he had a brake on his side. So at any point, he could stop the car. And it was really annoying. Sometimes I thought he did it just to mess with me. Like I'd be pulling out, just like, and hit my head on the steering wheel, and he'd just look at me over those glasses. I'm like, "What'd I do wrong?" He's like, "Nothing." Okay, I'm gonna keep, okay. So we get out on the highway one day. And I'm going about 55. I'm going the speed limit. Because anytime I'd get a little faster, I'd feel that little, like, okay, that's too fast. Gotcha. So we're out on the highway. And he tells me, he says, "Make sure you check your blind spot." To which I'm like, okay. And so I'm on the far side of the road. There's no lanes beside me. I thought, I'll just look back, passenger side, check it out. We'll be fine. I kid you not. When I lean back to check, this hand on the steering wheel puts tension to push, And as I do that, the wheel just goes, whoop. And so we go, and I feel my body jerk, and I feel the car start to stop, and we're in the median, and I look over, and he's just like this. He's looking at me, and his glasses were a little further down than normal, and I just thought, okay, that was my bad, okay? Keep your foot off the brake, I got this. So we go back out on the road. It's not 5 minutes later. I'm driving in my lane, same lane, all of that. He said, "Check your blind spot." This time, he takes his hand, and he reaches over and grabs the steering wheel. He's like, "I got you." I'm like, "Good, so I can do this now? All right, we're good." So I check, and nobody's there, and then I'm getting ready to merge onto the exit and all of that. So he's writing in his thing, not looking, and I didn't check my blind spot, and next thing you know, I'm merging to get off, and you hear because there's a semi right beside us where his tire was scraping the side of our car. And so I just kind of went like this and thought maybe he didn't notice. And I look over, and what's he doing? Just looking at me. "Did you check your blind spot?" "No, sir, I did not." Write some more. Like, I'm gonna get a terrible grade in this class, but I exit and all of that. But I thought about that, and I thought about in life. What does it look like to check your blind spot? What does it look like to ask the question why? What does it look like to be vulnerable? Well, I think it is a lot like that car. I think it's opening the door and inviting somebody in that can sit next to you, that has a different perspective than you do, that is able to turn around with no risk, with no fear, and be able to say, "Yeah, there's a car coming right there." I think it's inviting people into your life who will say, "Hey, here's what I see." Because believe it or not, your anxiety and just the world in general will lie to you and convince you that things are in better condition than they really are. And the longer you believe that lie, the more anxiety piles on deeper and deeper and deeper. And the harder we try to get out. So vulnerability for us in our small groups especially is inviting somebody in, a leader, your entire group, somebody that you trust, to say, "Hey, I need you to ask me why and check my blind spots." Because here's the deal. What's just take an apology, but whys require change. So here's what I want to challenge you to do. We're going to go to small group in a few minutes. And you're going to sit in your small group like you have dozens and dozens of times. And you're going to have conversations like you've had dozens and dozens of times. And it's going to start out fun and all of that. And it's going to take somebody to lead the way and be able to talk about what's going on. And it's going to take somebody to be transparent and say, "Hey, this is what I did. This is what I have going on in my life. This is the thing that I'm struggling with." But then I want to challenge you to sit there and ask yourself why. To allow people to speak into your life and ask you difficult questions like that. Why do you keep going out and drinking every weekend when you say you don't want to? Well, the more I think about it, my life at home really sucks. I don't want to be home. My parents are fighting all the time. I've got crazy things going on, and it's the only time I feel like I can escape. If you be willing to have those conversations, to get below the surface and find out what is propelling the actions that you make, you will be able to break through some huge barriers in your life. I don't know about you, but in high school, I struggled with the same couple of things over and over and over and over. And I was waiting for somebody to give me the recipe that would kind of set me free from that. That I could have that aha moment of finally, I don't have to struggle with this anymore. Vulnerability can be that for you. And if you're feeling anxiety, and if those things are just creating so much anxiety in your life because you can't get away from them, I want you to keep this in mind. The vulnerability frees our heart from anxiety. If you're willing to be vulnerable and shine a light on that thing that's going on, you don't have to hide it. If you're willing to say, hey, here's what's going on, you don't have to look over your shoulder. You don't have to question things. You don't have to keep things from people. You don't have to take control because you've been a person that said, hey, search me, know my heart. I'm not gonna protect it anymore. I'm not gonna keep you out anymore. I'm not gonna keep these secrets anymore. I'm not gonna carry this anxiety anymore. Search me. Be honest with me. Don't tell me things are okay if they're not okay. Don't tell me I'm fine if I'm not fine. Be honest. I know only a handful of students will be willing to do this in this room. But you are gonna set an example for people, for what happens in your life that I think it will catch on like wildfire. So I know it's hard, and I know it's a big ask of you. I myself struggle with vulnerability. I have to be conscious to always have somebody in my life that I can say, hey, get in the car because I know I've got blind spots and it's causing me a lot of anxiety. So I hope that you would do that in your small group time. I hope you would do that this week. I hope you'd think about it. For those of you who are new, I just want to say transparency is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. We want you to be open. We want you to say what's going on, but also know it's not the only thing. I want you to know it's a terrific place for you to start if you're just getting started into this whole faith thing, into this whole small group thing. It's an excellent place for you to start. Let me pray for you. Father, we're so grateful that we can trust you. God, there's a million things that we could say about vulnerability. God, I pray for these students. I pray that they would know how incredibly important this is. Vulnerability is going to be the key to their relationships, their friendships, their spouse one day, their ability to connect with you, to not keep anything in the dark and hide anything, God, which will affect our intimacy with you, but being able to allow people to search us and know our hearts, our true hearts, the things that we fear the most, people knowing who we really are. I pray that they'd have the courage to do that. Because, God, you know it is in that moment that true change takes place. So give them courage. I pray that they'd have incredible conversations tonight. I pray you protect them in their small groups, help them know that they're safe and that they're loved. Thanks for these leaders and their willingness to be here. We love you so much. It's in your name we pray. Amen.